Be'ez Hashem Yisboch, we begin Perek Shlishi, the third chapter in the Rambam's Hilchos Tefilah, the laws of prayer in the Sefer Av, a book of love, which we continue and finish up the primary halacha of the Tefilah of the Shemoneh Esrei itself, with the discussion regarding the times of when one is supposed to daven. As Rambam begins halacha Av regarding the times for Shachar, Mincha, Musaf, Ma'ariv, Tefilah Shachar, the prayer of the morning, mitzvasa, it's mitzvah sheyaschel espal im honetz acham, that one should start davening it, the Shemoneh Esrei, with the rising of the sun. So when the sun starts coming out on the top of the mountains. Uzman, and the time goes ad seif sharavis until the fourth hour of the day. Shishlish, which is the third of the day. V'maver, now if he passes that by oitov espal achar arba, or he makes a mistake and he davens after 4 hours a day, but it's ad chatzais yom until midday, he has fulfilled his obligation of davening, but he has not fulfilled his obligation of davening in its appropriate time, which is only up until 4 halachic hours. Because just like the prayer itself is a biblical mitzvah, so does a rabbinic mitzvah to daven in its appropriate time, like it was instituted for us by the sages and the prophets. Halacha Beis, now Kavar already said in Perek Aleph Halacha Hey, that the afternoon prayer, they instituted its time correlating to the afternoon daily sacrifice that they would bring. Now, since every single day they would sacrifice this daily sacrifice, in 9.5 hours into a 12-hour day, so they instituted that its time to daven should be 9.5 hours into the day. This is what's called the small mincha, because you will only have an hour and a quarter, as we'll say regarding plaga mincha shortly. So you only have an hour and a quarter, so that's a very small amount of time, and that's when you should daven mincha. Now, but since there was times, specifically on Erev Pesach, which was on the Erev Shabbos, which you would limit the amount of things you could do, where everyone had to bring the Korban Pesach and be done, because you can't do Malacha once it's already Shabbos. So and the Korban Pesach had to be after the Korban Tamid. So they would do the daily afternoon sacrifice as early as possible, which was 6.5 hours into the day. So it was after Chatzais, but a half hour after, and like literally that was that early. So they said, so if someone does daven mincha after what would be on a perfect day, 12:30, 6.5 hours into the day, yata, he has to fulfill his obligation. And therefore, when it comes this time, that's the time of its obligation. This is what's called mincha gedayla, the large mincha, because its time is from 6.5 hours till 9.5 hours, which is much bigger than the time of the mincha gedayla. Harbe, many people have the custom l'spal gedayla gedayla, to daven mincha both by the mincha gedayla, which is 6.5 hours into the day, and by mincha gedayla, which is 9.5 hours into the day. But for achas tashos, one of them obligatory, and one of them is a voluntary one. Now, now some of the Goyim have ruled that which one should be the one that your voluntary one should be the earlier one, the one by mincha gedayla. And that's what logic would dictate, because that correlates to a time of the Korban Tamid that's not really so constant, because it's really only in the case of Erev Pesach, the falls in Erev Shabbos, that only then would they bring the Korban Tamid 6.5 hours into the day. Now, but if you daven the first one, as obligatory, then lo yispal ketana l'rishos, and obviously the second one should only be an optional one, and then you have to introduce something novel in one of the brachas to let it know that it's a nadav and not a chayv, as we said in Perek Av, halacha tes. Now, halamata, so you learn as follows: Shizman mincha gedayla, the time of the mincha gedayla is mishei shoysa mechza, is from 6.5 hours into the day, at tesha shoysa mechza until 9.5 hours into the day. And some have the gears over here. V'zman mincha ketana, and the time of mincha ketana is mitesha shoysa mechza, is from 9.5 hours into the day, at sheshor min hayom shoravi, until you're remaining with the day an hour and a quarter. So, because there's essentially, you have this 2.5 hours, but if you break that up into half, you have an hour and a quarter for the mincha ketana, and that's what's called, you get up to what's called plaga mincha, half of that, and you remain with an hour and a quarter. However, one has the ability, so you do it up until an hour and a quarter, but a person does have the option to daven the mincha until the sun sets. That's that optional area of the mincha ketana for another hour and a quarter. Halacha hey, now tefillas musafin, the prayer of the Musaf, Zman Achat Tefillah Shachar. You're supposed to say it, daven it after you daven Shachas, at Sheva Shas V'yam, up until 7 hours into the day, meaning including the 6th hour, but up until then. Now, if someone does daven it after 7 hours, Although he's negligent, he has to fulfill his obligation because ultimately its time is all day. It's just the Ketchilah, one should be davening it up until 7 hours into the day, as the Gemara learns out from drashas how we know that that's the Ketchilah time that it should be. Halacha Vav. Now, Tefilah Erev, the prayer of the evening, although it's not obligatory, Ma'ariv, if someone does daven it, which we already explained that all the Jewish people accepted upon themselves as obligatory. Its time is from the beginning of the night until the break of dawn. With Tefilas Ne'ilah, the prayer of Ne'ilah, which is by a fast day, its time is so that you could finish it very close to when the sun is setting. Halacha Zayin, regarding if someone davens too early. If someone davens a prayer before its designated time, so he has not fulfilled his obligation, and he has to go ahead and daven over in its appropriate time. Now, if someone did daven shachar in the pressing situation before that, after the break of dawn, Yatz has fulfilled obligation. Now, actually, one has an opportunity, an option to daven Ma'ariv Shaleli Shabbos of Friday nights, Be'erev Shabbos, when it's still daytime of Friday, before the sun has set, meaning from what we call Plaga Mincha, from the end of the first half of Mincha Gitana, which is another hour and a quarter till the end of the day. And someone could even daven Ma'ariv of Matzah Shabbos when necessary, when it's still Shabbos. And the reason is Lefisha Tefilas Arvis just because Ma'ariv is optional, which is really only going regarding davening Matzah Shabbos on Shabbos itself. But Shabbos on Erev Shabbos, you don't need that reason because there's a mitzvah to be Meisim Mechel Kodesh, and you actually want to do this early Shabbos to add on to Shabbos itself. So therefore, Imedak Bizmana, but at least regarding the Matzah Shabbos on late on Shabbos, very close to the end, you're not careful regarding its time. But as long as you're careful to say the Kriyishma in its designated time after the stars have come out. Halacha Ches, regarding making up a tefillah. Whoever missed the time of davening and didn't daven. So if he did b'mezid deliberately, there's no remedy, he cannot make it up. B'shoigi, if it was by mistake, or it was beyond his control, he was busy with things, he was overcome. So Mashal Ma'aseh Tefilah, then he can make up that Tefilah. B'zman Tefilah Smuchala, in the time of the prayer that comes right after it. Umakdim Tefilah Shebizmana, and you first daven the Tefilah of that time that you're up to. And then afterwards, you daven the one that you're making up from the one before that you missed. Halakha Test Ketzah Hausa, so Rambam illustrates. Someone made a mistake, and he didn't daven shachas. Now it's already after midday, so it's already too late to daven the shachas. So he spell mincha shtaim. What he does is he daven mincha. When it's time for mincha, he davens two minchas. Rishayna tefillas mincha. The first one will be for the one that you're up to, tefillah of mincha. Vashni tashlim shachas. And the second will be a makeup for the shachas that was missed. Tovali spell mincha shashakachama. Let's say someone made a mistake. He didn't have mincha until the sun set. He spelled arvish time, so he should daven ma'ariv two times again. Rishayna arvish. The first one will be ma'ariv. Vashni tashlim mincha. The second will be making up for the mincha that was missed. Tovali spal arvis. Let someone made a mistake. He didn't have ma'ariv b'shalom at shachar. It's already after the break of dawn. So mispal shachar shtaim. He davens two shachars, meaning so to speak. Rishon shachars. The first one will be the shachars. Vashni tashlim arvis, and the second will be making up for the ma'ariv that he missed. Halacha. Now tov loy spal. Let's say someone made a mistake. He didn't daven. Loy tefillah zu, not this prayer. Loy tefillah smuchal, and not the one after that. So ein mashal melachrin levad. Then you can only make up the last one. Only that one. Ketzah Hausa. So let's say tov loy spal loy shachars lemincha. Let's say someone made a mistake. Didn't daven not shachars, not mincha. Mispal arvish time. You can daven ma'ariv two tefillas. Rishon the arvish, the first one will be ma'ariv. V'achreinu tashlim mincha, and the one after that will be a makeup for the mincha that's before it. Av shachris, but shachris with two before it. Eilan tashlim, there's no makeup shekvar av zman because it already missed its time, which is only the one right after. B'chem b'shar tefillah, something applies to all other prayers too. And the halacha yid aleph, which talks about regarding the mincha, regarding coming before Mosiv. So he lefanam shtei tefillas. If he had in front of him two prayers, shal mincha b'shem asafen, to daven mincha or Mosiv. Because, for example, let's say he comes up to the time of mincha already and he didn't daven Musaf yet. So mispal shal mincha, first daven mincha ba'achar mispal shal masaf, and then you daven the tefillah of Musaf. The reason for that is because mincha is every single day, Musaf is not, and that's what's called tad b'she'en tad. If something more constant, something that's not so constant, tad the constant one is first. But says the Rambam, yesh mishemer, that those who rule she'ein oisim etzibikim, but when you're in the minyan you don't do this, kedei shalitu, that they shouldn't make a mistake, and rather you do Musaf and then mincha. And the reason for that is because they might come to do that another day too, even before Zman Mincha, that they'll be up to most that say, oh, we have to have Mincha first, and that'll be incorrect. So therefore, when you're in the minyan, some rule says the Rambam that you always do Musaf, and then you do Mincha.